Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
I now recognize the gentlewoman from Virginia, Ms. Luria, for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee favorably report to the House the Select Committee's final report, which includes the committee's legislative recommendations and criminal referrals of Donald J. Trump and others, pursuant to Section 4A of House Resolution 503.
The question is on the motion to favorably report to the House. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
That was the voice. The last voice you heard was that of Representative Benny Thompson from the 2nd Congressional District in Mississippi, as the House Select Committee made a formal recommendation to the Department of Justice for criminal charges to be pressed against former President Donald Trump, along with others. We'll talk about the others later. We discussed this yesterday, and, this is something that needed to happen without question. No one should be above the law, including a president. It is the lawlessness of Donald Trump that has fed so much of the attacks, so many of the attacks on democracy right now. As we take a very clear, sober look at what's going on in this country, we have to understand that it pre-existed Donald Trump, but it was Donald Trump's shamelessness and this idea that he was Teflon Don, that nothing would stick to him, that empowered so many people to behave in the same fashion. And right now we're dealing with Kari Lake in Arizona, who is doing everything she can to not only sway public opinion to her point of view. She believes erroneously that there was some type of fiasco or overthrow of the election. She believes that there was no fair election in Arizona. She refuses to concede, and now she has a lawsuit to further her cause. That type of thinking, that type of unwillingness to concede, it is something that precedes Donald Trump, but for sure it was inflamed by Donald Trump. That's just one part of it. Donald Trump clearly incited the insurrection, the attack on the Capitol, for which several people have been arrested and some are spending time in jail. There's others who are getting ready to head to jail because of their commitment to the overthrow of democracy. Some say on behalf of Donald Trump, but I'm going to be honest with you. The Republican Party is ready to get rid of Donald Trump. They are. They don't need him anymore. They're moving on. They won't Ron DeSantis because Donald Trump has no shamelessness. Like, there was literally no bottom for how low Donald Trump would drag not only the Republican Party, this nation, but himself. But I just want to put a fine point on this detail. This behavior is still very present in the Republican Party. It is very much alive. The refusal to concede, the willingness to overthrow the country, the willingness to overthrow democracy for the sake of maintaining political power. It is alive and well, whether or not they find Donald Trump guilty. Now, does he need to be put on trial? Yes, because a statement needs to be made to show that the president of the United States is not above the law. And as many other things as he did while he was president of the United States, the least that we can do is ensure that he doesn't overthrow this democracy, or that he doesn't get away with the attempt of overthrowing this democracy. So the committee has made recommendations not only for Donald Trump, but along with other individuals. There are four recommended charges that are going to be brought up against Donald Trump. We discussed those yesterday. But I just want to really point out a couple of things about the people who participated in January 6th. The people who participated on January 6th were wealthy Republicans, white Americans who have everything that they want in this country. They literally have everything. They have insurance. They have houses. They have big gas guzzling cars and SUVs. They have professions. They have all the advantages. They have everything that they can want. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing difficult about being this wealthy breed of white Republicans who could afford to take off and drive to Washington, D.C. so that they could cosplay Call of Duty or cosplay the Second Civil War. They were wealthy enough to go there. As a matter of fact, one of the individuals who's going to be who are included inside of the referrals to the Department of Justice sounds like a soccer mom who is a doctor, a white woman who is a doctor who has now thrown her entire life away. She's thrown her entire career away by aligning herself, getting so worked up, letting Donald Trump and Fox News and Tucker Carlson work them all into a frenzy. And now Jacqueline Steyer, a doctor from Massachusetts, is going to be a part. Actually, she was already arrested on felony charges. The Department of Justice announced today. And there's pictures of her going around on Twitter, thanks to Kyle Chaney for bringing it to our attention. But these individuals who tried to overthrow our country, I have to categorize them in the category of the spoiled children of the empire. These are the people for whom this empire was built by us, black people, built by minorities, off of our labor, built off of slave labor of black people for specifically, right? Built off of the capitalization of every single part of our lives, right? This system was built to the benefit of this very specific demographic. This is the nature of white supremacy. They have benefited from every facet of this society, and yet it was not enough because they could not fathom in their minds losing an election because their minds don't work like that. There's no way in the world they believe that they could lose. And this is what we're dealing with Kari Lake out in Arizona. She is really on this continued crusade to overturn the results of the last election because they have gotten it in their minds like children that there's just no possible. I mean, matter of fact, my apologies to children because we honestly would not allow children to behave the same way that these individuals are behaving. And this is important. What's important is for us to realize that whatever happens with Donald Trump, there is still a strong contagion that's spreading through this country that involves the unwillingness to transfer power. The unwillingness of Republicans and conservatives who are still running for office. They're still losing elections, but when they lose elections, they refuse to concede. Listen to Kari Lake.
Now, if they thought we would just sulk and accept the results of a rigged sham election, they were wrong. My resolve to fight for the millions of Arizonans disgusted with years of botched elections is stronger than ever. I want to say thank you to all of you who are praying for me and supporting me in our movement. Please pray for the brave witnesses, whistleblowers, and citizens who saw what happened and documented it, and for our patriotic, courageous legal team. And pray for the judge who's overseeing this case. The world is watching what happens here. We, the people of Arizona, demand honest elections, and we won't stop until we get them.
I have to give it to Republicans. I have to give it to people like Donald Trump and Kari Lake. They are completely committed to their con. Now, Kari Lake knows she's lying out of her teeth. And this is why I have to give it to her, because this is a top breed of acting. This is top level acting. I know she has a lot of television experience, so she should definitely get an Emmy for this performance because she comes off, her voice just sounds so, she really believes this. And at the end of the day, the people she's accusing of committing fraud are Republicans. Republicans from Maricopa County, Republicans who run the state. She's accusing her own colleagues, her own comrades of committing so-called voter fraud in order for Katie Hobbs to win the gubernatorial race there in Arizona. Listen, I want to lean directly into this in today's conversation because while a lot of people are going to take their eyes off of this ongoing coup, after the trial of Donald Trump, if it ever goes to trial. You know, that's the big if it ever goes to trial. Jack Smith is on the case, and Merrick Garland has brought in Jack Smith as the special prosecutor. And so it looks like with this referral from the select committee that Donald Trump may be indicted, but I'll believe it when I see it. But even if it happens, you have to understand that Republicans are gearing up all around this country to continue using this tactic. And in some cases, they are able to make it stick. Like we said yesterday, Kari Lake is doing her best to get critical mass. And that is enough public pressure to get action from officials that favor her lies, that favor her fantasies, because it's simply impossible for Republicans to lose. This is really what I don't want to leave this completely at the feet of Donald Trump, but this is really one of the biggest parts of his legacy, the complete and total refusal to concede when you lose. But I have to bring into the conversation George W. Bush in the 2000 election. This didn't just start with Donald Trump. Republicans have not been respecting elections since at least 2000, when the Supreme Court gave the 2000 election to George W. Bush. So we have to be mindful, because they are not done. This is a long-term project to be able to overcome their disadvantages because of democracy. There is a built-in disadvantage in democracy for fascists, because the majority of Americans do not buy their BS. We got a lot of Americans who believe a lot of stupid stuff. We got a lot of Americans who go along with a lot of bigoted stuff. But the majority of Americans understand very clearly that we're dealing with a spoiled set of losers who can't possibly imagine having lost an election. Never mind the fact that their policies are anathema, that nobody wants what they're selling. They're saying, no, we're going to force this on you. And I think this is the real danger. This is the ongoing, continued danger of the Republican Party in 2022 going into 2023. This is not going away because of Donald Trump, of this referral from the select committee. Good on them for doing it. But there's a whole nother threat, a whole new level of threat and persistent threat that democracy is facing. And it's not just Donald Trump. It includes the existing and remaining Republican Party. I want to lean in a little bit further here in Arizona, because Kari Lake has gotten the go-ahead on a lawsuit. I want to read from Democracy Docket and give you more details about this, but Kari Lake has been pushing a lawsuit that finally got audience before a judge. 8 out of the 10 accusations in the lawsuit brought by Kari Lake's team were dismissed, but there were 2 remaining allegations that have given them the ability to move forward with their lawsuit and their exploration, a case, a trial against Maricopa County. Now, again, I want to emphasize something. I'm going to play a clip to make it clear. The Republicans, the people that Kari Lake is accusing of helping Democrats, are all rank and file top leadership of the Republican Party in Arizona. I repeat, the people, the institution that Kari Lake is going up against are her comrades, her Republican colleagues, her friends. But that doesn't stop her from making accusations to make it seem as though somehow there is this deep state, insidious plot by Democrats to refuse the people of Arizona their duly elected governor. No. You just have an ego problem, Kari Lake, because even your friends don't want anything to do with what you're trying to do. Listen in.
According to Ms. Lake, there was a concerted, coordinated effort among signature reviewers, Runbeck employees, and Maricopa voting machine technicians to rig the election against her. This master plot was deployed on Election Day precisely because more Republicans tend to vote on Election Day. And this intentional conduct against Republican voters was driven by the Maricopa County Recorder, who is a Republican, and the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, 4 out of 5 of whom are also Republican.
4 out of 5 of the supervisors of election in Maricopa County are Republicans. And this is the institution that Kari Lake has filed a lawsuit against. Now, let's just be real. A lot of this is just for her to be able to continue to con her supporters. This is what I think she's missing some of the context of why Donald Trump is in trouble, because he is one of the charges is that he's attempted to defraud the United States of America. In this case, Kari Lake is attempting to defraud her supporters. This gives her, even though she knows that she doesn't have a viable case, it gives her the ability to raise money from angry supporters who really believe what she has to say. Now, listen to the argument that this attorney who is arguing for a dismissal of the case of all the points in the lawsuit. I mean, the attorney is making it clear of how ludicrous this is. Some mysterious plot between Republicans to conspire together to aid and abet a crime against Arizona voters on behalf of a Democrat? It doesn't add up, but something else doesn't add up. Listen in.
And remarkably, this scheme took place among some scores of election officials and non-government actors without a single trace. No documents, no emails, no leaks. There's a reason that election contests do not entertain such far-fetched allegations of intentional conduct and instead require allegations of fraud with particularity as to the who, what, when, where, and how.
In other words, show us the receipts, Kari Lake. You suggest, and this is the same thing with Donald Trump. Like these are people who have no problem bringing frivolous lawsuits for public relations campaigns and for marketing. Don't believe for a second that because an individual files a lawsuit that their intention is to actually win that lawsuit. And this is the same thing with Kari Lake. She's using it to raise money. I want to read a couple of details from Democracy Docket, who reported on this. Arizona judge on Monday, December 19th, an Arizona judge rejected 8 out of the 10 claims in an election contest brought by the failed Republican candidate for Arizona governor and election denier Kari Lake against Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs. The Maricopa County Recorder, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and the Maricopa County Director of Elections. The complaint alleges that illegal votes were cast in Arizona's November 8th, 2022 midterm elections and states that the tabulators' rejection of thousands of ballots set off a domino chain of electoral improprieties. The complaint also alleges that the Maricopa County ballot printers and tabulator failure created chaos on Election Day. Lake claims that she is entitled to an order vacating Maricopa County's canvass and Arizona's certification of the results of the 2022 election, and that the 22 election should be rerun with the Maricopa County or within Maricopa County, or that she should be declared the winner. First, Lake claimed that election officials violated the First Amendment by censoring election misinformation. Monday's order rejected this claim in its totality, quote, saying, even viewing the allegations in the light most favorable to the plaintiff, she has not stated a claim. Lake also argued that the signature validation methodology used by Maricopa County did not comply with state law. The judge rejected this claim, holding that Lake raised his allegation too late under the circumstances and that are not justifiable. Next, Lake claimed that she suffered intentional discrimination in violation to the equal protection and due process clauses of the Arizona or U.S. constitutions. The judge wrote that Lake has trouble even at this stage drawing a through line, from purported discrimination to well-pled impact. And as a result, the claim should be dismissed. It goes on and on through all the various claims that the judge outright dismissed. And again, I'm reading from Democracy Docket that gives a good breakdown of the various claims from Kari Lake that were dismissed. Finally, a much narrower version of the 2 remaining claims will go to trial on December 21st to the 22nd. And so over the next 2 days, we will find out just how robust, or rather the lack of robustness, these claims have from Kari Lake. But the most important factor The key thing to understand is that if our institutions even blink a little bit and give room for these QAnon conspiracy theory, election denying deplorables, then we are dealing with the breed of people who have no hesitation. They have no compunction whatsoever about overthrowing the election, overthrowing democracy, and overthrowing this country for the sake of their egos, for the sake of maintaining power at all costs. We'll be back right after this break.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. Very special welcome to our newest patron, Tino Wolf. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. This show is brought to you by none other than all of our patrons who support us every single month. You too can become a part of this prestigious family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show. Oh, wait a minute. That's patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, none of the commercial interruptions, and you get access to our bi-weekly patron party, which we're having one this Friday night. It is a holiday Christmas patron party. You want to be in the place. Patreon.com/The BPD Show, and we'll be back right after this commercial break. Unless you're a patron, in which case you don't have to listen to these commercials.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I want to go a little bit deeper into Republican conservative politics, and I want to focus in on two things. One, several things. They're all lumped together. You got Charlie Kirk's conference that's going on right now, the American First Conference, which is sponsored by Turning Points USA, and Charlie Kirk himself sponsored by millionaires. No discernible talent other than being able to use the money of billionaires to further the cause of conservatism and, to be quite honest with you, fascism. Kari Lake was there this weekend. Everybody, it was a who's who of American fascists. You had Steve Bannon there. You had Tim Pool, who just recently entertained Kanye West as he began to devolve into his Hail Hitler stage of life, right? You have this entire cabal of right-wing sociopaths like Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, and again, Kari Lake and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, there's trouble in paradise. In this next clip that you're going to listen to, it is a fight that is brewing inside of the Republican Party over who is going to be the Speaker of the House. Marjorie Taylor Greene from the state of Georgia has cast her lot with Kevin McCarthy, who is about as close to a traditional Republican as you can get in this QAnon era of Republicans. He's about as milquetoast as you can get. However, of course, he will go along with all of the madness that comes from the Republican Party. I don't want to say this as if he's some type of, good player, good actor. He's not a rational actor himself. But when you compare him to the likes of Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, then you can see a distinct difference between those two different breeds of Republican. But whatever the case may be, there's a war going on between the Republican Party and within the Republican Party about who's going to be the Speaker of the House. Marjorie Taylor Greene has thrown her support behind Kevin McCarthy, and that has brought her into conflict with her fellow co-star from the movie Mean Girls, Lauren Boebert. Take a listen in as Charlie Kirk sets up this question for a potential feud in the Republican Party.
Someone who we all respect, Marjorie Taylor Greene, says Kevin McCarthy is going to be a great speaker.
I guess you'll have to ask Marjorie about that. I'm a fan of hers. I'm an admirer, but it's not something we see the same way.
Lauren?
I've been aligned with Marjorie and accused of believing a lot of the things that she believes in. I don't believe in this, just like I don't believe in Russian space lasers.
Are you a hard no?
Space lasers and all of this? No, I'm just saying we need to actually have an inside conversation and make sure that these promises are there.
Okay. A little shade there about the Jewish space lasers. She's trying to distance herself from Marjorie Taylor Greene, but you really can't distance yourself from the stench that is on all of these deplorables. None of them are better than the other. They are all equally sharing an IQ of a sloth. But I digress. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene's response to it. She tweeted a few hours ago, "I've supported and donated to Lauren Boebert. President Trump has supported and donated to Lauren Boebert. Kevin McCarthy has supported and donated to Lauren Boebert. She just barely came through by 500 votes. Oh, the shade is glorious. Lauren refuses to endorse President Trump. She refuses to support Kevin McCarthy, and she childishly threw me under the bus for a cheap soundbite." There's trouble in Neanderthal paradise. But what do we do in these types of circumstances when you have two monsters going up against each other? I always reference the movie Godzilla, the updated version, where the soldier looked at them attacking each other and he'd take a step back and say, let them fight. Let them fight and let them pull each other apart. Because you know what? The disgusting what they agree on, the disgusting things that they agree on, they just can't agree on Kevin McCarthy. They agree on 99.99% of everything else. Like, well, when now Lauren Boebert is distancing herself from the Jewish space lasers, but at the time she didn't say anything about it. You know? So one thing we can count on when you're dealing with a coalition of people who are centering their politics around their bigotry and their egos, you can always count on their egos destroying them in the long run. Now, whether or not these two will tear each other apart sufficiently enough to bring an end to both of their careers is the same question I'm asking about Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. Both of them need to rip each other apart in the primaries that are coming up to destroy one another. They believe in the same thing. The only thing they disagree on is who should be the head Neanderthal. This is it. This is what they disagree on. They don't disagree on attacking black people. They don't disagree on attacking and targeting the LGBTQIA community. They don't disagree on being committed to gun violence because they're more committed to the NRA than they are to the lives of our children. They have no hesitation about pouring more money into this police state. They have no hesitation about all the different, well, there's some Democrats who don't have that hesitation too, if I'm going to keep it 100. There's some Democrats that fall in that category. But as it pertains to the Republican Party, I don't care what they disagree on. It's going to be minuscule compared to the things that they agree on. This is why I don't look at Liz Cheney, who served, fabulously on this committee, on the select committee that just referred Donald Trump to the Department of Justice for trial, for charges. Don't tell me you're not a good person just because you oppose Donald Trump. You're not. Not when you vote with him on every single thing else, Liz Cheney. And this is the same thing when in this kerfuffle between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, and the other voice you heard in there is Matt Gaetz. The interviewer, of course, was Charlie Kirk. But Matt Gaetz and Charlie Kirk, why are either one of them free? Matt Gaetz, who has been investigated on credible allegations of having sex with minors, right? There are details to that honestly, this guy should, winning an election, being a congressperson, he needs to be under investigation. He needs to be on trial right now. And then you got little Charlie Kirk, who sent 80 buses. 80 buses. That's how much money he's getting from these millionaires and billionaires, right? These billionaire Republicans who are funding him. He was able to put together 80 buses to go to January 6th. I wonder how many people who are going to jail for January 6th rode on a bus that Charlie Kirk sponsored. And then, of course, Steve Bannon was somewhere around that ecosystem. I have a clip. I'll play that during the patrons part. But I just want people to really bring a laser-like focus to this fact that there is no distance between these Republicans and these conservatives on any policy that hurts us. The only thing that separates them is their ego and who's going to be the biggest kingmaker or the queen maker, who's going to be the next president, who's going to be the next House Speaker, who's going to be the next Senate Majority Leader. That's where they divide each other. That's the only way. But in terms of their hate and their bigotry, they're all on one accord. Patrons, that's my music. Stay tuned. We have a few more stories to go over. Everyone else, patreon.com/the BPD show. We need your support. Cash App, BPD 2018. If not, we'll see you tomorrow.